Good evening. My name is Hannah Drabchek. I use she, her pronouns. When thinking about race, it wasn't something I thought about growing up. I was never deliberately taught that I was white. I grew up in a white neighborhood with white classmates, primarily white community altogether. I do believe that we had some minorities that lived in the community, but they were not in my class. They were not present in my church. They weren't something I was around. So it just didn't really occur to me that there was anything different because this is what I was familiar with. My family would go on vacations, but we were visiting other places. So I expected people to look differently. When I think about Helms's stages of racial development, I really kind of stayed in that first area of contact. Being colorblind, everybody's treated the same. It didn't really matter. I like to think that I skipped over the reintegration stage for the simple fact of I didn't ever believe that whites deserved anything differently. I think that I grew up in a church where it was if you pray hard, believe hard, and work hard, you're going to get good things. So anyone that didn't wasn't due to their race, it was due to other factors. What I did not realize at the time was that we had system barriers in place for all of this, that I had the ability and the privilege to do well because I had the whiteness to me. I really had my first taste of anything when I was in 7th grade. Unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and shortly after, we experienced a huge change in our political culture, our government, the way that we had worked with people. I learned about travel bans and things like this. And I always remember, I did have one friend who, again, the colorblindness of me, she was just a friend of mine. Her father was, they're Muslim, and her father was a doctor, and he was getting like death threats sent to him afterwards. And it never even pertained to I'd never realized what that would mean. That someone who is a working contributing member of society would get death threats because they are Arab American. And then when I was a freshman in high school, I had this really awesome opportunity to do a school exchange program. A teacher of mine had a sister who was a teacher in an inner cities Boston school. And there, we had 15 of their students came to my school for a week, and they stayed with our families and did things that we did. We hosted a dance, which was the highlight of the year for them because they didn't have these at their school. And then 15 of us went over there. I was the youngest, and it was this really awesome opportunity because I was 100% the minority. There were 5%, maybe 7% of white population in the school. It is a completely different upbringing than what I had. But what it showed me was just the lack of resources that people had, and yet what they could do with it. It was incredible to see all of just the different things. They had mold in their school. There were no computers in a computer lab, like there were 2 working ones. I also, though, being the youngest and being female, was taken care of. I was very much protected. I did have one instance on a subway, and I was walking with the youth that I was living with. He was Black, and somebody tried to get a little bit, I don't know, touchy-feely, and he completely defended me. And he and I had this really awesome conversation afterwards that he grew up very much learning the rules of being Black. He learned that when he walks into a store, his hands have to be out of his pocket. When he's walking outside, he couldn't have a hood on. And these were completely new concepts to me that I had never even thought about because that wasn't the world that I lived in. With the age that I would have been an adolescent, so identity versus confusion. And what I love about this stage that I was in is that it really gave me a chance to look at what I had and the privileges that I had and how I wanted to do something with that. I learned then and there that I wanted to go work in the mental health field. I wanted to help those who didn't have access to services and things that I had. And it's been a pretty incredible journey ever since. I do believe that being white has been a huge privilege for me. I have been pulled over several times in my life and yet got one speeding ticket. It's not because I drive any safer or different than other people. I look different. Like I said, I can go to a store. I don't walk past someone and have them clutch their purse as I walk by because they're afraid of me. Those are huge things that I've not had to experience, but they're such a reality for others. Had I experienced racism growing up toward myself, I could see myself kind of feeling more, I don't want to say hatred, but a discernment of people. I wanting to stay with my own community so that I don't have to experience being looked down upon or having that being treated that way. When it comes to how I can take action, Kolivoski, Weaver, and Huggins, they spoke about access to services in the mental health field. With my current role, I do a lot of training with our local police officers for our crisis intervention team training. And it has been an incredible experience to really open up their eyes to the systemic racism that happens in the police force. Nobody likes to be told that they're racist. But when I look at the number of Black men in our jails that we have compared to white, compared to any other minority, compared to women, etc., the numbers don't lie. And when we look at things that way, there's more of an understanding. And then when we look at mental health and jails, so what we're working on with our CIT is really working to give people access to resources that is not the jail. Understanding that sometimes there are other ways to approach services. And then what the article talks about is that African Americans experiencing mental illness are less likely to receive treatment, but then they also end treatment prematurely. And I love the fact that, or what they talked about with the fact that our treatments that we have are whitewashed treatments. They have been proven effective for socioeconomic, middle-class, white individuals. I think that speaks volumes to what change we need to see at a macro level, at a policy-making level, at a teaching level. When it comes to working in, specifically for me, crisis work, really understanding that when someone is calling in a crisis state, that there's all of these other pieces to it. It's not just a simple, oh, hey, they're experiencing this mental health symptom or this little crisis event. It's that all of these other factors and barriers that are in place affect them on a day-to-day. So I really enjoy learning about CRT. I think that it's a valuable thing to be teaching in to schools and education. I think that, again, nobody likes to be told that, hey, you're racist. But when we really look at what that means, it's not an individual. It is as a system, as a whole. Americans, we as a country are a racist country. We really do look to policies and procedures and everything else that are very white oriented, and our country is shifting. We have more Blacks and brown and Asian population, and just it goes beyond race. We have the Soji population is increasing, and unfortunately, while our suicide numbers were decreasing, it has astronomically increased in the last 2 years, ever since 2020 and the end of the pandemic. So we really need to be mindful of all of these other areas that people are being affected so that we can be effective social workers.